Welcome to Getting to Know You, residents and staff at Stonebridge. In a few minutes, you'll learn how to say that in a different way. For now, we are in the garden room, which is a lovely place off of the cafe. And outside, it looks like it could be a French cafe, given the furniture that's there. And that tips you off to what we're going to be talking about today. But basically, it's a bigger theme. It's really, how does Stonebridge become a place, or is a place, where people learn, laugh, enjoy things together, listen, and do it for themselves, not by the staff, which does a great job having programs that we all enjoy and bringing us together. So today, I'm glad to welcome Dick Iger, who is known as the organizer of the French Hour. And when that French Hour meets, they call themselves something else. Dick, could you tell us what they call the French Hour and where it takes place in French?
Well, we call the French Hour L'Heure Française, and we call Stonebridge Chateau Pierrepont, which is Stonebridge in French.
Okay. You might not have learned that in what is it, junior high, or no, actually, most likely high school. Most people learn French in high school. And a lot of people here at Stonebridge were French learners and also traveled and did activities that had to do with French, and got here and really wanted to have a good time working with the language and learning the culture sort of all over again. And Dick was here to take over what had started as a group in February, you told me, 2019.
In February 2019. And it was started by Simone Levitt.
Mm-hmm.
And she had from 3 to 4 residents, and they met informally in the library.
Mm-hmm. And she was no longer with us, sadly. And you were part of that small group, I take it, or knew of it
Well,
at least.
at that time, my wife, Ruth,
Mm-hmm.
she's going to love this, was part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
And, but Simone always said that I didn't have to be around because I spoke too well. So I wasn't around. But after Simone left us, a number of the residents asked if somebody would take over. And that thought came to me that this would be a wonderful experience. So I did.
Experience for you and for the people, turns out, and for the people who became involved in the French Hour. So,
Yes.
And it was, in good measure, you saw a way of making everyone feel welcome who was interested in speaking French or learning more about the French language.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about how that evolved? Because it's very ingenious. We could all be thinking about what you think about in your French Hour.
Well, I found the reason that I was interested is because the residents in the group were very interesting. And I've always had the thought that in learning a language, you learn to think with your own talent, but in a different way. And that was the same reason that every individual who has been drawn to the French Hour, that they have come with their own talents, and into communicating between each other, it's a two-way inspiration.
Mm-hmm. So this started before the pandemic, and you went into the pandemic with a group ready to go, and you had to think about how the group could continue. And so I really liked the idea of coming up with, that you told me about coming up with an organizing topic that anyone at whatever level of their language ability could participate. Can you explain a little bit how you do that?
Yeah.
And how you did it during the pandemic when you were really locked
Yeah.
down and couldn't be meeting.
Fine. At the beginning of the pandemic, we realized we could no longer meet actually together. And thanks to Robin, she suggested that we have a virtual meeting on the telephone. And she set that up, and we tried it out. One of the problems earlier is that I realized everybody did not have the opportunity in equal time to speak during an hour. But by telephone, where we were all in our own apartments or houses, the only part of us that was sharing this experience was either our ears or our mouth. And there had to be a structure to our meetings. So every weekend I would send out an email with the order of the speakers who would talk. And I picked a topic and that I thought would be pleasing to everyone. And I added information about grammar and words and vocabulary depending on the topic chosen. To all of our surprises, everyone began to speak more freely at their own level and with their own state of comfort. And this became a wonderful way to think and speak in French, and for us to be able to get to know each other. And throughout the whole pandemic, to the very moment that a month or two ago we were able again to meet together in the club room, I kept the structure and was inspired by what people like to speak about. And I learned that everyone was not a tourist in France. That was not the first time they came in contact with the French culture. Many of us in the 20th century who were European came through France to arrive in America. So our reasons for being in France were not touristic completely. And in sensitivity to this fact and this opening of communication, it enriched the reason where we were there in the French hour.
Can you give us an example? I'm thinking about the most recent one that you described what you wanted people to talk about. And maybe you can tell us what the next hour is going to be about.
Oh, sure. Just recently, we all spoke about Halloween, since that it was at the end of October. And in France, there is no word for Halloween. The word for the evening, in English or Old English, we know as All Saints' Eve. In French, that is le soir des Toussaint. But this is not anticipating pumpkins or trick-or-treat or people walking around in costumes. So I shared vocabulary and traditions in the cultural sense in my email, but the subject was for each person to speak about their view in French about Halloween. And we got a variety
I can imagine.
of conversations, but everyone spoke, everyone approached it from the experience of their life, and it was fabulous.
I heard one of the participants saying that she had to look up eyes and nose and mouth so that she could describe carving a pumpkin. The word for, in French, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the word for pumpkin in French is la or une citrouille. And to carve a pumpkin is to sculpter la citrouille. And trick or treat is bonbon ou quelque chose de grave. So, using your imagination, and if you think freely in French, you can go from there.
Right. So, well, at the end of the program, we're going to do a quick shot of the class. What's the theme for this week that they're working on right now?
The topic for this week is inventions of the 20th century that changed the world. And everyone will have something different. I gave examples in my little brief email, but I encouraged them to make up their own. And I gave them some vocabulary hints, but everyone in the group is not, no one is shy, and they speak with their own voice. And that is another fabulous part of the French Hour.
Well, I think people have gotten the idea that this is probably a good learning experience, a good way to get to know people. That they have a number of laughs too in the class.
Yes.
And I can just think of one invention that we already learned the word for, and that is bridge.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Now, part of getting to know you is having people get to know the people here at Stonebridge and what they did before they came here, and that in many cases influences what they're interested in. So I have to ask you, Dick, how did you ever get to be a French speaker?
Well, it was not by design. I grew up in Garden City, New York, and in our high school, junior high and high, we had a very advanced modern language program. One could begin in the 7th grade with a language, and if the marks were high enough, one could keep studying that language for 6 years through graduation. So in the 7th grade, I started with French, and I graduated in 1951 in French as well.
And it wasn't long after that that you got an opportunity, I believe when you were in college, to go to France and stay there for what, a year or summer?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, the theme of this and all of it is that studying French has enriched my life. And there is no part of my life that, without forcing to do or speak, it has played a role. And I did my undergraduate work at Pratt Institute in New York. And after my freshman year, I went to France with the experiment in international living. And my group was sent to Colmar in Alsace. And Colmar...
This is a big coincidence,
yes,
right? Yes.
But all my experiences with French have been big coincidences. And Colmar is the sister city of Princeton. And I did not know that then, and I only learned
Well, it was much more recent. I mean, after, there was
Yeah.
a 50-year gap there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, it worked out. Go ahead, finish telling
It worked
the
out
story.
very well.
Yeah.
And I lived with a French family in Colmar for a month. Then our group of French and American students spent a month bicycling through the Loire Valley, seeing chateaux, cathedrals, and sampling pastry shops, and then 2 weeks in Paris. Then 2 years later, I won a scholarship from Garden City to represent the United States at the International Rotary Club event in Aix-en-Provence, France.
Good places, Colmar and Aix-en-Provence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was the only American represented, and I had to speak French with 48 other representatives from around the world.
So that was a really good beginning.
So that was a good start.
Okay, I'm going to jump over this and say when we first met you here at Stonebridge, we did what most people do, and at having dinner said, well, what did you do? And I found out that you worked for Golden Press, and you were the editor of Richard Scarry, best word book ever, which I think practically everybody here had a connection with as a parent.
And in French, it's Le Livre des mots par Richard Scarry.
And so when I
Wow.
told people about this man that's, here at Stonebridge, you were seen as like a rock star because everybody remembered the best word book ever, Richard Scarry. It was a famous name for our cohort. But then you told me that there were lots of other ways that in your career in publishing, you were using French as an adult.
Yeah, well, Richard Scarry, we'll leave him in a minute, but he lived most of the time while I was the publisher of Golden Books in Lausanne, Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
So going to the Frankfurt Book Fair
Mm-hmm.
or going to the Bologna Book Fair for children's books, we would always go to Lausanne first. And when going to Frankfurt, I would visit my Colmar family en route to Germany. So the liaison continued.
Right. And then lo and behold, when you moved to Princeton, it was the time that the Colmar-Princeton exchange was going on, and
Yes.
and you got involved.
Yes, in 2000. And I'm happy to say that Marvin Reed was the mayor of Princeton, and thanks to Marvin, he got me active with the Colmar group who were here at the time. And it really opened up living here. And immediately I took French classes, audited them at Princeton University. And much to my amazement, there were 5 other American men auditing these French classes, and after class, we'd meet in a Princeton restaurant and all speak French.
Well, you just never stopped, and that's probably why you're a really good organizer, that you you had so many different ways of being connected with French people and French culture. You weren't just a tourist.
Yes, and today, French is really enriching life here at Stonebridge, because we're finding ways to communicate, and the best way to communicate is to have friends and explore a new language, and that's what we do.
Well, you're having a good time, and Jock is going to come, our videographer here, and to take a picture of the class and
Yes.
have, I don't know if they're going to say bienvenue, or when he walks in the door, say welcome, isn't that the word?
Well, they're going to say, soyez bienvenue, and one person in the class is going to say bonjour and tell you immediately what cocktail he likes. But everyone is working on their greeting
Okay.
that they're going to give you
Okay,
now.
all right, well, we'll look forward to that and end this segment of getting to know you when it's not quite finished, and you'll see something in action that goes on at Stonebridge. Thank you so much, Dick Iger,
Je
for
vous en
being our
prie,
guest.
et merci beaucoup.
Okay, to be continued, okay. Welcome to the French Hour. As we said when we said goodbye to Dick at the end of the interview, we were going to come and see the group in place when they were meeting. So here I am, glad to be here.
Soyez bienvenue.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your conversation in French, and I know that your organizer will be very proud of you, as he has told us he is, in your topics that you pick and the way you speak about them in French. So have a good class. Thank you.
Au revoir.